I'm glad you caught that now because I would have been hot. All right. Me. Hey guys, what's going on? This Monday call is going to be a little different. This is actually a recorded call that me and Kyle, a friend of mine, had about the business that we are trying to do, me and Nathaniel, with the teaching business. But I think a lot of the information that he shared can be applied to the POD business model. I wanted to play the recording for Nathaniel and us have a conversation and show and just talk about the different ways that the information that he talked about applies to the POD business model.
So I know this is already a little bit different, but I think the first thing you need to address is who is Kyle and why are we watching this video and like respecting what he's saying so much.
Kyle Hammer and Jason Miles partner up together and they do teaching. Kyle Hammer has a few online e-commerce businesses. Jason Miles has a few e-commerce businesses. It's just somebody that I look up to, that I ask a lot of questions and harass pretty much. And I wanted to introduce them to this group. If you guys are interested, there will be a link in the description to go and learn more from them.
Yeah, and if you guys want to see more from them, you can let us know in the comments because they are pretty good friends of ours. And like Steven said, they're just people that we respect their teaching and what they're doing. And they've been very helpful for us to kind of wrap our heads around this whole thing. So I think we can go ahead and jump into this recording now. And then, like Steven said, we're just going to have some conversation about the thing. So you're going to see Steven twice here. It might be a little off-putting, but there's like a past Steven and a current Steven. So I think we'll see what's going on once we jump into this.
Trying to come up with the best solution for the majority of people. I think that's where I struggle, and just the teaching is like, I feel like I can teach math because there's an actual absolute, but like in business, there's so many variables that it's hard to be like, well, this is the best thing for everybody. It's like, it's always different.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges about any of sort of the training courses that are out there, or, you know, whether it's big Amazon course or big Shopify course, is that they basically are trying to replicate and make everything fit for everyone. And sometimes you can, and there are definitely principles and tactics that work consistently, you know, but not at 100% and not for every scenario. Not everyone's brand, not everyone's skill set is created in a way that it is empowering for them. And so I think it really comes down to understanding what skill sets are required going into any level of training that really set people up to win. And I think that's missed sometimes on the front end. We don't get really clear on, hey, here's the skill sets you really need to have in order to execute this at a high level. If you don't have those skill sets, this is where you need to get stronger or have a team member work on them. Or if you have a business partner, that's cool. If it's going to be an employee, that's fine too. Somebody on your team has to bring this to the table in order for you to have success. I think there's just a level of honesty with that.
I really like that because the ideas that we've been bouncing back and forth were like POD fundamentals is what we were going to call the teaching, because I do think there is a base level that everybody kind of needs to know. I wasn't thinking about it necessarily as skills, but that's kind of what it is. Like you have to know so much. Yeah. Like you need to know how to use the platform, what product you're going after, how to design the art, how to do basic, I'll say SEO, but like keyword research, be able to position your products correctly. Those are the teachings that we want to put together. That's kind of where me and Adele struggle because we've been doing it I've been selling online for more than 15 years. So like, I don't remember what it was like to start. So that's where I struggle when I try to help people is like, how do you set up an account? It's like, I don't know. It's like 7 clicks, but I don't know how to like slow it down. So those are some of the people that are reaching out to us, be like, you know, you guys struggle with this or the motivation piece, because that's not my strength either. I'm just like power down, get the job done. That's not like a good fit for everybody, but just getting better at teaching and learning that stuff and then being able to provide from zero to like, this is a strongly suggested way to run your business. And then here's the skills that you should acquire and or have team members pick up. I like that a lot. So I think we'll stick with the POD fundamentals, but like we're working on your skills is ultimately what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, every sort of skill set that's required to have your business thrive, there are levels of mastery, right? Like you get started, you're going to be terrible at it. It's going to be a challenge. And you have to work through the frustration of learning something new. And part of it is that people don't persevere long enough for the time that they're putting into it to catch up to the result that they're looking for. Like there's this gap between the ideal, what they want to have, and where their skill set is, and only time and expertise and trying it and doing it, or you're paying somebody to do it. If you have money to get started when you're out in business, you can obviously pay people who already have the expertise to do the work. But if you're starting out, you're scrapping, you're in startup mode, there you have to close the gap between your lack of knowledge and execution and skill to the ideal that's going to actually move the needle. And it's how fast can you move that? How persistent do you, how persistent are you, and how often are you actually trying to move and get better? It's like that percentage point better mentality. It's like, tomorrow I want to get 2% better at my email marketing than I was yesterday. How do I do that? Well, maybe if I use better subject lines as a test, then that means I'm testing, I'm moving forward, I'm implementing it. And I think that's what it comes down to ultimately.
In that section, I was talking about our teaching that me and you, Nathaniel, are working on, but I think he brought it to what I think our core business is. We have skills that we apply to our multiple businesses, but for the teaching business, I think he said that there is no like perfect way. There are some foundational pieces, but it's not necessarily like, hey, I can teach it this way and it works for everybody across the board. That's what I've especially been struggling with, is like, how do I make a message clear that most people can take it and use it and apply it? And I think boiling it down to the skills required is a much better way of looking at it. So the POD business model, there are certain core skills that you need to have success. I think we've talked about the assets a little bit, but what skills are required to build the POD assets?
I will answer that, but I definitely want to like echo like how strongly I feel that like after teaching for however long we've been teaching, and like we still have to generalize a lot of our advice unless you guys are jumping on one-on-one calls with us, or in some of like the paid training that we've done where it's like, here's a hangout that we're going to do. And those are the times that I think I feel the most fulfilled, because it's giving guidance to people like directly. That's the whole WingMan brand, is working with people kind of one-on-one. But a lot of the way that we have to show what's possible is through general advice. So that has been like just this struggle that I've had internally, and something we've both shared in where it's just like frustrating. Like we want to show like the nitty gritty and exactly what this looks like. But the beauty of print on demand is that can look so differently and so drastically differently for so many people. We have people who have been doing this as long as we have, and they're still just a one-man army, and they like it that way, as to where we went the opposite route and just hired a bunch of people and tried to like make this thing a whole like machine that's moving forward, where we just get to specialize in the one thing that we're good at. So there's lots of different ways to come about that. So, but definitely some of the skills that you need. I mean, kind of the two skill sets that we have. Stephen is good with the SEO and kind of understanding an online marketplace and what it takes to be able to be seen there and show up in certain areas. And then the flip side of that, definitely the art side, just being able to, once you are seen and once you have customers looking at your stuff, like attract them with what is kind of working. And my skill set has adapted a lot for print on demand. It's no longer like I'm creating something that I really like, or I'm creating something for one customer. It's really I'm creating for this section of the market, or for these keywords that we have where we know people are going. So adapting those skills to Amazon is even like something you have to learn to do. But if you have a basic understanding of kind of keywords and data and how all the back end of that works, and then some basic skill sets, you can definitely get started. And then understanding how to perfectly adapt those and really sharpen those skills for exactly what we're doing is just something I think that comes with time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said like adapting your skills to the marketplace that you're selling. You are a very gifted graphic designer. I have been selling online for a long time, so I have a lot of SEO/keyword indexing understanding, but being able to hone that skill to use it for the business model that we're using, which is POD, and especially even fine tuning it for the platform or the product that you're going after, is very interesting.
Yeah, and something else I just am thinking about is I think that you're so good at kind of the SEO and understanding Amazon as a marketplace that we've kind of skipped out on some of the like marketing needs for most of this stuff. We can kind of, I wouldn't call it hacking, but we can do research that would show us a good place to put a design, and also the research kind of shows us what design is going to work there. So we don't have to run a lot of ads for what we're doing, like outside of Amazon to draw people in, or we're not doing, I don't know, like that's completely something that I'm just ignorant about. And I think it's because I've leaned so heavily on your ability to do, good data research. And then it's just like, design this. And then I've learned how to best design or tell someone else to design the artwork that goes up specifically for Amazon's base. Now with Shopify, that kind of opens a bunch of other doors. So we're realizing we need like sales
additional
copy.
skills,
We need
marketing
like
skills,
customer analyzing, and all these like different things that we're just not equipped to do at the moment. But those are all lessons that we're learning, stuff that I hope to share here, but it's just taking time for us to figure all of that out the same way that it did for Amazon. So it's just been interesting to see like these are kind of the base skills that you need, but this is how they're going to adapt and improve in the future. And if you are really strong in one area, you can kind of lean on that, at least in the beginning, so that those other things aren't such a burden to do. Like I was doing this all by myself and just leaning on my art skill and had no idea where my shirts were going, but I thought that I was creating some good designs and they were selling by miracles, I guess, because now that I understand the data side, it's like that shouldn't have worked at all, but for some reason it did. So you can kind of lean on your strong suit, but you still have to at least have some basic concepts of the other things that you need in order to, what we think, have a successful print-on-demand business. So that is where our hearts are at. We still want to teach that stuff, but it is kind of hard to do, like Kyle said in the video, general for everybody.
Yeah, I guess that was interesting too, to think about like the business in stages. Like you said, I think in the beginning, if you are a one-man show and it's like you're in that infancy stage of your business, you're going to have to do almost everything unless you can afford to hire somebody. And I think if you do have one skill that you feel like you've mastered, you can lean heavier on that. It doesn't mean that you can disregard the rest of the skills, because you're still going to have to do them, or at least pick them up or hire them out. But just knowing that whatever you start, you can really lean on your skills to help you get started. But as your business goes to the next stage and grows up a little bit, you are going to have to either hire or work with somebody or do different things so that your business can evolve and continue to grow.
Yeah, I think your personality actually comes into play a little bit as well. I think I'm like stubborn enough to where I just like tried this thing, but after a while I realized like I'm not going to have the type of success I would unless I either learn keywords really well for myself or lean on someone else who has that skill set. And thankfully, Stephen, my brother that I was living with at the time, had kind of the perfect skill set to match with mine. And I know, like, we say this all the time to each other, almost weekly, like I wouldn't be doing this without you. Like there's just so many things that I don't enjoy and that I know my personality type is just not going to fit for that, that I have to have someone who's going to partner in order for this thing to be successful. And so you can, I think after a while, like you said, it's kind of in stages. So after you kind of get past that first stage where you're like, okay, this thing's moving a little bit, like I know that in order for this thing to really expand or for me to be able to really lean on this as an income stream, I have to get better in this area. But my personality type is I'm not going to be able to do that. Like I don't have the mindset for it. I don't have the drive to like really dig into keywords and care about that deeply. So then it would be like, okay, now I need to go find someone, or like, oh, okay, like I understand the design thing. I can kind of put that on the back burner for right now. Because I really need to dig deep into this data stuff and get my hands dirty so I understand what's going on over there. So knowing yourself, knowing the business, and that's why I said it's really complicated with print on demand, because it's not just, here's the steps that you take. Like every step that you're taking is like a multiple choice question and there's like 30 correct answers. So it's just a hard thing to do.
I think it's the flip side of that is that it's good because you can find your lane. There's not a right way of doing it, but there is a right way for you. Nathaniel started out leaning just heavily on the art, saw that he was not having the success that he wanted, and reached out to somebody that had the SEO skill. I think for you can, what skill are you good at? Start with that, build your business, start figuring out POD, the foundational pieces of learning the basics, like what platform are you going to on, what product are you going to be using, but knowing your skill and then growing that, I think that's a great way to get started. But then there will be a point where you're like, okay, I'm not having the success that I want now. The next stage of this is getting those additional skills. Do I learn them myself? Do I hire them out? Do I partner up with somebody? That's why I think why we love POD so much, because there are so many opportunities to find success in POD. There's not a, okay, when you get to this level, now you have to hire this, or you learn this, now you have to learn this piece of it. It's like what works best for you. That's why I think we really like those one-on-one calls, because we can figure out what your situation is and then help you create something that's a good fit for you to be able to find the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think the frustration is like on our part as teachers. Like, we love the system that we have built for ourselves, and we want to share that experience with other people, but it can be frustrating to teach because you kind of have to know someone at a certain level to be able to like suggest what the next step is for them. But I think on the flip side of that, like, it is very rewarding after you've done this for yourself and like, I've created a business that I enjoy and is actually a good income stream for me. Like, that's a very rewarding thing to do, especially on a free platform and a platform that's just continuously growing. So there are lots of upsides from like actually being the business owner. But I think us as teachers, that's where I was saying that frustration is coming from, because it's like, I want to make sure that I'm not, shoehorning you into doing the business the way that I do the business. So if I told Steven like, hey, I understand print on demand and you have to learn Adobe Photoshop to be successful at this, like, he's going to be like, all right, okay, like, I'm never going to do that.
Not a business for me.
Yeah, it's not going to be a business model. But like, we've learned that it can also be just for people who enjoy data and the SEO side of things, and they can just learn Spark, which is like super basic. You can just throw up some words and that can be your design and you can have success with that. So yeah, custom fitting, I think anything that's custom fit is going to take a little bit longer to create or build and understand and see how valuable it is, but it's definitely worth it if you're willing to put in the time and just be consistent with every step.
I agree. All right, let's go back into the video.
It reminds me of some story about the London Philharmonic Orchestra, some big symphony thing, and they were asked, the different symphony experts, all of them are experts in music, like, what are the top 50 greatest pieces of classical music, and so they were going through and they're listing and naming them, and the like Mozart had like 8 of them, and Beethoven had like 6 of them, and like, I mean, so you think of these are the pinnacle of what they were doing, but Bach had a couple of them, right? And so these guys, these are who you think of. These are the Mount Rushmore of classical music composers. But what we don't hear about and what we don't remember are the 600 or 500 other pieces of music that they created that are probably still great, but never rose to the level of just transcendence. And it's true, Mozart was 600, and even though he died young, Beethoven was 650 or something like that. Bach was in the thousands. He literally created thousands of pieces of music, and yet 2 made the list of sort of the transcendent. And people can argue which is what, and I'm sure there's on other lists, but if you think about it, in comparison, the percentage of absolute stellar wins is really, really small. And so there is a level of excellence that has to be attained where there's a lot of process. And even in the creative process, like music, there's just going to be some music that you create for yourself that, or maybe you're creating it. And, if you asked Bach, if you could talk to him, he'd be like, yeah, that wasn't even my favorite piece, but that's the piece that everyone is like, wow, that's it. So all that to say is that it comes down to persistence in generating that content, whether that content is the next video or the next product or the next POD design or whatever it is. It's a consistency over time that allows you to win. And so that's where I think that all that stuff ties back into your conversation about branding and perseverance and skill set, because even the experts, even the people at the pinnacle of Mount Rushmore of marketing or e-commerce or whatever it is, there's still the 600 or so other things that they tried, they tested, that they did that wasn't a masterpiece. And we don't see that. We only see we only remember the very, very best. So I think that would be my encouraging message for anybody who is like trying to grow in their skill. It's persistence every day.
Yeah, over time,
Consistently over
consistency.
time. It's tracking what you're doing so that you actually have a baseline to know how am I executing, how am I working through it. Because we're practicing these things, but we could actually get more proficient at our skill sets if we track them more effectively. That's the other piece of it as well. But
So I really like that example that he told about like the classical music, because I think that's a very good way of representing what we've gone through. Creating at this
Thousands and
point thousands and
thousands.
thousands and thousands of listings, and knowing that there's only like less than 10% that kind of rises to the top, and it's like those are the ones that we're banking on. So I think when you start off and you hear those odds, you're like, oh, okay, I don't really want to do this, but there are ways that you can increase those chances tremendously, like by I don't know, we don't have to get into all the specifics of it, but there are ways that you can increase those odds when you're first starting out. But just that idea of like, I am good at art, Stephen is good at SEO, but that isn't like the only thing that's making us successful. And I really think the thing that makes us successful is just like this headstrongness of just like running into walls and not getting defeated by not seeing a ton of sales when we first started out.
Persistence.
Yeah, exactly. Just the consistency to keep moving forward, to keep making those listings. And he talked about like being able to track what you're doing. So that's something that you're really good at, and is definitely something that helped us. The whole doubling down thing came from you realizing like, oh my gosh, this one sale doesn't just represent like, the $5 that we made on the shirt. It's the fact that we figured out kind of this customer pathway. Like we did a lot of things right. Let's take this information now and try to do nothing but focus on how to expand that, how to make that into more sales. So it's understanding little things like that, where it's like, okay, I sold a shirt, great. That's some motivation to go for another week or two. But if you're not, having more sales, then it can kind of feel like you're deflating. But if you really focus in on that one sale, like, okay, here are the exact keywords that I used. Here's the type of design. Like, how do I take that, morph it even just the slight bit, like we talked about on the other Monday show, maybe 2 weeks ago now, where it was like just changing this one graphical element, like how this the stroke on this handle looks, like the thickness of this line. That's like the amount of detail that we're changing here, and we're seeing that make different sales. Why? Who knows? But that's the way things work. So really getting into the nitty gritty after you've found something that works in some sales, like that is a huge part of it. But regardless of all that, like just being consistent and not being afraid to put up like those composers, like here's 1,000 pieces of artwork or of music that like, it's not just like they have a beat and they're rapping over it, like not to downgrade rap or anything. I really like rap, but like them composing something I know is so like labor intensive what they're doing. Like it's not like us making a listing. That's probably a better example of like, here's a text-based art and here are some keywords that we just randomly found and threw together. You guys saw me do that whole series on like 5-minute listing. Like composing a piece of music is not a 5-minute thing. Like that's hours and hours and hours and months and even years sometimes working on like one piece of artwork. So for them to have 600 to 1,000 of these is just showing like they're just moving forward, and they have 1 or 2 that rises to the top, and that's like what they're known for. So I think if you can take that same mentality and use it for print on demand, I think that's kind of what we have done. I don't think it's as impressive as composing classical music, but that's kind of the mindset that we have when we're doing this thing, is like, let's just keep doing it, try to figure out what people like, and double down on those types of things.
Yeah, I think I'm going to come at it from just slightly a different angle, because the skills, I think, is really what's resonating with me. You talked about like doing that stuff to create the listing or build the asset, but I think looking at that story of the composers, they didn't, like, even that first piece of music that they made, there was so much skill that they had to learn to even get into the game. That's where I really think like you have to put in your hours to, like Kyle said, the level of mastery. You have to start somewhere, and just getting good enough to even get that first listing up is a huge accomplishment that I think a lot of people just skip over. But I want to kind of talk more about the skill side of it. You're going to have to put a lot of hours in to even get a listing up. And then as you're creating those listings, you're going to be getting, like Kyle said, 1%, or even if Dana went on that rant of the 1% a while ago, but you're going to slowly build that skill and grow to the level of mastery. I think the conversation we just had was you're going to have to do something. If you're starting, you're kind of in the beginning stages of your business, you're going to have to do a lot of the jobs. But once you start working towards those, getting better at certain skills, you're going to resonate with one of those. Then you're going to, I think, hone that skill and then hire, or if you want to be a solo entrepreneur, which is not really what we are promoting here. I think what we are trying to talk about is growing a business. And I think a business is multiple people doing business systems, doing those skills that are required to get those listings up, to grow the business. I think you're going to have to play the entrepreneur role at some point and kind of, I don't want to say mastermind, but be a manager of your business and work on your business instead of in your business. That's what we're trying to help you do. But I think in the beginning, you do have to start. You do have to have a foundational piece and skills required to be able to get your business to that like next stage. So that infancy stage, you're going to have to grow out of that. How do you do that? There's many different ways of doing it, but the skills, I think, is what you should focus on more than like, I need to get this many sales. I need to get this much better. And the only way to do that is by consistency and over time getting percentages better so that you can master those skills.
You asked me a while ago, like what the skills I think were required, and I basically just said SEO and graphic design, and maybe some marketing if that's the thing that you can lean heavily on. And thank God those skills aren't like we have to go to school for years and years and years on end just to like understand like the basics of it. Like graphic design,
I would have dropped out a long time ago.
Yeah, like graphic design like is made so simple by a lot of programs out there nowadays. My favorite being Spark. I've talked about it nonstop because I love what it allows
simplicity.
You to do. Yeah, and for you, I know there are a lot of tools and things out there that just make it easier. It's not like you have to like scrape pages and do all the stuff that you had to do like back in the day. There are a lot of things that speed up our ability to learn those skills and take away a lot of just like the understanding that we have to even be effective at those skills. So it's a lot different than learning skills for other things. But I was just curious to see like if you thought there were any other skills that you needed or anything else that you wanted to touch on as far as this, or if you just agree it's kind of like those 2-3-ish things that you need.
I think there are many skills that we are not addressing because like I think currently, because the skills idea is a little new, I don't know if like accounting is a skill. It's a job, or you're going to have to hire a technician to do it. Marketing is another possible job, but I do think those are skills. And I think if you want a solid business that has the potential to grow and maintain and actually evolve into a real business, how we see it, where you're managing the business, I think there are many skills in that job. Now, to separate the skills from the actual like jobs, that's where it gets a little hazy for me currently, but I do agree with you. I think in the beginning, there are two main skills, and it is the SEO and the keywords. When you start making more money, then it's the accounting skill needs to come in.
You're so SEO focused. You said SEO and keywords. You didn't even say
art and design. Sorry. There are two skills. I have both of them. But the skills in the beginning, I think, are simplistic. But I think as the business grows, as you work with more platforms, more products, more people, more partnerships, you will have to add more skills. I don't know even if like an entrepreneur is a skill. Future thinking, planning, managing, I think those are skills, but I don't know if they're needed necessarily in the beginning. And I think because we're trying to help a large amount of people, especially in this like getting started stage, because that's most of the questions that we're getting asked, we're trying to address those. It is not necessarily what we want to be focusing on. I think we want to help more people like scale their business, how to hire, how to go to the next level, how to do these things. But I think you do need a very solid foundation to build off of. So to answer the question shortly, no, I don't know how many skills are required, but as you grow the business, there's going to be additional skills that you need to pick up. In the beginning, I do think 2 major skills to focus on to get some money coming in, to start building the understanding. Because would you say like Shopify is a new skill? It's something that you're learning technically, right?
Yeah. And I think is from just a lot of projects and stuff that we've worked on in past, where it's like we're constantly trying to figure out the new thing. So I see what you're saying. There are just a lot of skills, and it's hard to like categorize all of them. But I would agree that there are levels to having a printed on demand business, not just like the tier system that Merch by Amazon puts you on, but like the skills that you need at certain areas is very true. So if you're just starting off, just trying to figure this thing out, like designing and SEO are like the two things that you really want to lean into. And if you already have one or both of those, then fantastic, you'll hit the ground running even faster. But like I was saying, it's not the hardest thing in the world to get those skills or use tools that kind of are a crutch for you to get past those first couple of stages. But then there are things like marketing and accounting and an entrepreneurial mindset where you're like, okay, this is working here, where else can I expand this thing, and kind of seeing the whole marketplace and understanding like what you're doing. All those things like kind of come into play. So I think that'll be an interesting conversation for us to have, but I think we should not go too far down on that road, as that can get really nitty gritty as us was trying to figure that idea out.
I do have two additional things that I want to wrap up on. You talking about the skills, and then like the Spark is the tool that you're using. Would you say Shopify is a tool, or is there certain skills that are needed to be able to use Shopify, and Shopify is not necessarily a tool? I guess I'm trying to get at like, is the platforms that we're using a tool, or is the platforms that we're using a skill?
That's a good question, and I might answer this one way and then in another week answer it another way. So take this with a grain of salt. My current feeling is that Shopify is like a toolbox, because okay. I have to know like web development and good website design
and that's skills.
How to make multiple apps work together and understand shipping, like all these other things that I think are maybe skills more than tools, but Shopify is kind of the playground that I'm using all of those skills inside of. So I wouldn't say Shopify is a tool, because that just means like you can kind of like pick up and use it, at least in my head. Like I said, maybe in a week I'll change my mind. But right now, like I'm seeing Shopify as like, I'm glad that I've done all these just random projects and created websites for random different things, and have experience using some of the tools inside of Shopify. But it's not, I don't know.
Okay, I guess why I was asking is because I agree with you that you have to have a baseline of the skill in order to use the tool to aid you in that skill. I don't think you can pay for a tool and then it just solves that skill. Like you still have to be able to use your skill and that tool to get the results that you're looking for. I don't know of any tool that like solves a skill problem. If you have a skill problem, you need to learn that skill. I guess that's what I was trying to say, is the platform an additional tool or skill? Because I think Merch and KDP, or anything that you can plug in easily to Amazon, is a great way to use your skills to get a product to market and not have to worry so much about the marketing, because you're tapping into a platform. So I guess Shopify is a little different. Yeah, Shopify I think is a toolbox or a tool set. I do think Merch possibly is a tool to help you get your assets to market. I guess this is a larger conversation that we're going to have to go back and forth on. And like you said, in a week, it'll probably change. In 2 weeks, it'll probably be completely different. But I just wanted to have that conversation. I think my and Kyle's conversation was a very eye-opening experience to me, to just say, oh, okay, we're seeing this business slightly different, and the skills required to run this business, I think, are simple to start, but I wasn't even thinking about it like that. And as we try to help more people, and that frustration that we have to realize like, okay, not everybody's on the same starting position, not everybody's in the same business model. How can we make general advice to help the masses of people, and then be able to explain clearly what we're talking about? Skills, I think, are a really good way for us to talk about it, so that we can say, hey, you need to learn SEO skills. Here's the basics of these skills. Here are the tools that we're using to be able to perform this, to get this job done. Just like you talking about art, talking about Spark, talking about Photoshop, those are the tools needed, but you do still need the skill and the level of skill to be able to use those tools.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's hard to answer that just thinking about it for like 30 seconds. So I'm sure as we have this conversation and that develops, that will be helpful for people to wrap their heads around, and it will help us really. I think what we're doing here is helping us teach more effectively, not just this general advice that we want to throw out, but like understanding like where are you at, what do you need to be focusing on, and how can we help you do that quickly and efficiently. So
yeah, and I guess if you're just getting started, we have like teaching on certain platforms. I think as we evolve, we'll get better at this, but we have playlists on if you're just getting started in KDP. We have a few playlists if you're just getting started on merch. Those will be down in the description to help you out. But Nathaniel, if you want to bring up your question of the week, and then we'll transition into that.
Question of the week kind of goes along with our teaching side of the business that we've been talking about a lot today. And someone just asked me, where's the best place to stay up to date with our latest information? And they asked me this on Facebook, so I told them on YouTube. I have a feeling if you're watching this video, you're probably on YouTube, but we have transitioned not too long ago into just being kind of full on the YouTube platform, because it's a better place for us to categorize and archive a lot of our content, so that not only can we go back and find it, but you guys can also go back and find answers to questions that we've answered in the past, but also questions that you just might have about a general topic. That's a lot of what we try to do here, is just give our opinion, our 2 cents on certain things, answering a lot of questions. We try to do one every week, if not multiple every week, and just a lot of like golden nuggets that are thrown around that we think we can capture better here on YouTube. So
yeah, and for us, I think because we do so many videos, YouTube is a better platform for us. We've kind of been teaching on multiple platforms and really kind of heavily focusing on Facebook, and just realizing like we're putting out a lot of video content. It's getting lost. It's getting hard to find. We are even having a hard time finding it. That's why we're moving over to YouTube. We do like coming on camera, answering those questions, and being able to, I think, just better explain ourselves. Because I think if somebody's asking a question there's in text, I'm missing a lot of the depth, especially if it's a SEO keyword question. It's like, hey, I need help with these keywords. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing and where are you at in your business? Just having a conversation with that person. Most of the time we do that with videos, and we're trying to bring a lot more of that knowledge onto camera so that you guys can, look over the shoulder. So it's not like, oh, you just need to pull these keywords. It's like, well, where, what, how.
Yeah.
Even the last week question of the week, when Nathaniel was showing that person like, oh, you just misclicked a few buttons. Like, you understand 90% of this process. This little 10% is really what's tripping you up and taking you to that level of frustration where we have hit many times. And it's just easier sometimes to show you visually, because I'm a visual learner, and being able to do that in a way that me and Nathaniel can talk about it, answer the question, capture it, and then send people back to it.
Yeah, definitely with like graphic design things and SEO, like it's just way easier to show somebody that has to write down every single step. So we are enjoying the YouTube platform over here. We're appreciative to you guys. We still have the Facebook group, and we answer questions in there weekly, but really the comments down below is where a lot more of our attention is going, and we actually get notifications for the comments below. So that's why we keep asking you guys, if you have questions, please put them in the comments. If you want to see something, let us know in the comments, because we're looking at those daily, trying to respond to you guys, but also that's really influencing the direction that we're going with this YouTube page. So we appreciate you guys. I think this was a good week, a little bit different than our normal scheduled content that we do here. But again, if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments. We can do a lot more of this. Steven talks with some pretty cool and influential people throughout the week. And yeah, I think it's just good information for us to share that relates to print on demand, but might not necessarily be like, here's more SEO training or design training, which we will definitely be doing. But if you guys want to hear more of this stuff, where it's just kind of our thoughts and ideas and opinions on things, again, let us know, and we can, steer the ship in that direction. But I think until next week, Steven, unless you have anything else you want to close out with.
No, sir. That's it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.